Hey everyone, it is Wednesday afternoon, and we have our expert series continue. We have Matt Seamus with us today. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So, as you know, I was planning to record a video this afternoon, sort of me just talking to the camera, and I decided, you know what, this would be better for me to get in a conversation with another expert, and that is the notion of cash, and more specifically, cash for the second half of 2020, right? For the next 6 months, is cash trash, like Ray Dalio says, or building on maybe what Jim Cramer talked about this morning, that cash is an asset? And again, just for July 1st through December 31st, 2020, when I threw that at you, what did you think? What do you think cash is for the next 6 months?
Well, first of all, I love that we can uh, just kind of throw out a topic and just kind of talk through it in real time.
Yeah, it's fun.
So I guess I'll caveat my statements with I'm thinking through it with you,
Uh-huh.
in real time. Um, I guess this is really a matter of what kind of opportunity do you see in the future?
Right.
Um, and I actually think both of those positions are defensible,
Hmm.
depending on your outlook. So, um, if you are accumulating cash with the intention of you think opportunity doesn't necessarily exist today, but you anticipate opportunity existing in the future, and the accumulation of cash is your way of getting ready for that opportunity.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think cash is really then I think you're in a position to feel like cash is really valuable and important,
Hmm.
and it's actually my priority. And you might have. It's actually I had an investor I was talking to back in, this is probably late March.
Okay.
So I'll call it, at least for where we're sitting, kind of maybe peak hysteria
Hmm.
for COVID, as uncertainty
Right.
was rampant. Stock market was reeling, and the weather wasn't improving yet. Everyone was kind of really, really uncertain. And I had one investor, very experienced guy, and he that was his position. He was like, I'm not looking at opportunities right now because
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be as good. I don't think any opportunity that I look at, generalizing, is
Yes.
going to be as good today as it will be in 6, 9, 12 months. And for him, accumulating cash was the strategy.
Right.
I think, if you look at the other side of the coin, um, how long are you willing to uh, earn 0% on your money before you make an investment? Um, there is an opportunity cost
Hmm.
to accumulating and hoarding cash.
Sure.
And are you in a position to be able to pay that opportunity cost?
Yeah.
Are you in a position where you feel like, opportunities are presenting themselves today? So
Yeah.
I actually think that both statements actually have merit.
Yeah, because I've been thinking about this for a while, right? I've been very clear. I'm sitting on more cash today than I have my entire investing career, right? Because I was always buying. I mean, anytime I got a commission check or sold some stock or did a cash out refi, it was like, okay, next asset, right?
Yep.
Just like an assembly line. And right now, um, this is without question the greatest uncertainty that I've seen in 20 years for real estate investing, let alone stock market, let alone economy. I mean, there are just so many things out there. Even if you just say single family homes, right? Like we talked about last week or the week before, inventory is down, prices are going up. Where's the demand coming from? There's just so many, I think, unnatural things going on in the market. And my stance from, hey, I'm going to go try to buy, I don't know, 5 to 10 single family homes this calendar year, to, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen the next 6 months. Um, I think rule number one is not to lose money, right? So yeah, there is an opportunity cost to holding cash, but making a bad investment that can come back to bite you is kind of breaking rule number one, right? Don't lose money. So I am very uncomfortable sitting on whatever pile I have. And I'm having a hard time telling myself it's okay. Because I've always believed Ray Dalio, right? Cash is trash and cash is deflating. And, you know, a gallon of milk used to cost a nickel or whatever it was. And now it's $3 or whatever it is. And, you know, I understand inflation, right? Got an econ degree and an MBA. So I get that inflation, and I see inflation, right? The $3 trillion we've already printed and trillions more coming will have a cause in inflation, but that still doesn't fix my God. I am so unbelievably nervous about the second half of this year. And I feel stuck, and I just wanted to talk it out with you and see if you can help me be unstuck or say, you know what, reasonable.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, I also have more cash than I want right now.
Yep.
And it's because I've liquidated some stock market holdings. And we are, you know, as we go and look for investments, we are quite prudent with the investments that we make.
Mm-hmm.
And part of my personal strategy is also a diversification approach, which necessitates that I don't put a certain, you know, I only put a certain percentage of my wealth into any one asset.
Yep.
So almost by definition, you are limited by the volume of purchases that you're doing. And so I think there's something there. You know, I think it's okay to look back and say, man, I should have pulled the trigger. I should have made that deal work. I should have made that investment. I think that's an acceptable place to be. Okay. I think it's not really acceptable for me to make an investment that I look back on and say, man, I should have just waited it out. Yeah. I was too hopeful. I was too optimistic, and I wish I wouldn't have spent my time and money and effort on that investment. So I think like I err towards, you know, a more conservative approach, a longer term mindset. And with a long-term mindset, you hold some cash for a year or two. How much is it going to hurt you? You know, inflation is not going to eat away. Inflation works over long stretches of time. It doesn't really, at least in our world in the US, historically, it doesn't eat away at your wealth, your cash wealth, in year-long increments, at least in any meaningful way. So I think I kind of err on that side of things. Do you have an opinion on that? I
think that very sound logic. I think you're right. I've often told people in my career, I've only been concerned with the downside, and my job is to protect the downside. And if I can live with the downside, I do whatever it is, whether it's a commission plan, a changing jobs, whatever it is. And same with real estate investing. So I think your logic there is solid, because I think you're right. I would rather miss a deal than talk myself into a deal that I later regret. And I think that's where I'm at. Because again, you have all these talking heads out there, and I'm not only talking about talking heads on the TV, I'm talking about talking heads in my personal network going, what the heck are you doing? You earn somewhere between 30 and 40% on your money the way year 6 and 20 works. Why don't you just keep doing that over and over and over again? And I'm like, well, did you not remember 2007 and 8? I lived through that. I saw what could happen if the wave broke the wrong way. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that is one of the downsides, right? That could happen out there. So I get, you know, part of me thinks I'm being too cautious, but I think your logic there is solid. Because again, what am I talking about? I am literally talking about getting through the election, right? I'm talking this year, because I think right now it's a coin flip who gets in. And based on who gets in, there will be a change, right? One way or the other. You're going to get 4 years of something. And With a coin flip, I don't know. I can't protect the downside with a coin flip, I don't think. So yeah, I like that logic. The other thing I got to tell you, that this, again, just while we're riffing on this, is the one thing that I have done in my career twice really well is I realized where all the momentum was going and got out of the way, right? Single family homes in '06 got out of the way. C-class apartment buildings that need work in 2019 got out of the way. So right now, it seems like the federal government is lending to almost anyone on anything, right? They took away the debt to income ratio, DTI, here in the last 24 hours for some loans. That's very '06 like. And so part of me thinks, if everybody's going to go get loans, I want to go the other way. I want to have less debt in a year than more debt, because if everybody has debt and we have a little hiccup, that's what caused, the discounts last time, is because once little hiccups and little dominoes fall, it spreads across. So again, part of me is thinking, I'd be interested in your thoughts here, is that clearly the Fed is lending on almost anything. First time mortgage lending is up 6 out of the last 7 weeks. It was down 3% today. But part of me is going, damn, I might want to have less debt in 6 months than more debt. I mean, what do you think about that?
You know, I think it is. I think it's a good approach to, as a first stab, to say, okay, where's the herd moving, and should I consider? I need to understand where the herd is moving, and should I consider moving in the opposite direction? I think that's like an appropriate question to ask.
Yeah.
But I don't personally find any value in moving against the herd simply to be a contrarian. I need to have a reason or a hypothesis as to why that's the appropriate position. So I would say, like, personally, I would look at, that's the right first question that I might ask, but then I would dig in and determine fundamentally, why would I move against where the herd is going? I mean, at least in the last few months, the indication has been, don't fight the Fed.
Yeah, no
Fed,
question.
There's all sorts of reasons that the stock market should be a lot lower than it is. And the Fed is doing everything it can to disconnect equity values from reality. And you and I don't have the power to affect anything that's going on there. So I think it's really important to understand what they're doing. And to my knowledge, the Fed is basically saying that they are going to continue to use every possible weapon at their disposal, and they feel like they have quite an artillery, to continue with the analogy, or the metaphor, quite an artillery left of weapons to continue to deploy. So that does not make me confident in betting against what the Fed is doing. I don't mind debt in general. Over the long term, assuming inflation exists, fixed rate debt secured by cash flowing assets is just about the best thing you could have.
Right.
And I agree with you that inflation it has to come at some point in the future. Clearly, the Fed is not concerned with inflation in the short term, but at some point, presumably that direction will change, and holding cash flowing assets is going to be a very, very strong place to be. I think you can't. The other thing I think that's a consideration is, if you look at this goes back to opportunity cost and to cash hoarding, and kind of that concept. But you could the reduction in interest rates as a borrower, if everything else stays the same, the reduction in interest rates makes that deal that you were looking at before the interest rate was reduced more appealing.
For sure.
And that in some cases is happening today. The 10-year treasury is extremely low. It's a benchmark that a lot of commercial loans are based on. Interest rates for owner occupant properties are very low, and interest rates for investors on single family homes are very low.
Yeah.
So in at least on one metric, if you can buy the same property and it produces the same income today as you could back in January, but today you're getting a better loan terms, it actually makes more sense to buy the property today. Now, you have to factor in all the things that are happening in the economy and what you expect to happen. But I think that's an important factor. And so none of these answers are easy, right?
No, of
You
course.
have to, you need to educate yourself, and you need to, ultimately you're making a bet. You're making
Yes.
or at least an educated guess. I mean, that's all that investing really is. And to your point about understanding downside and mitigating risk, if that's the most important thing you can do. If you understand the risk, you feel like you can quantify it, and you're comfortable with the potential outcome of that risk, of the risk assessment that you just made, and the upside is meaningful, you go make the investment.
Yeah. Well, let's bring it full circle, and why I am, I'm probably early in this. Let me say it differently. I am certainly early in this concern, but let me paint you the vision that I saw firsthand, right? So I buy that house on Norris Drive. We talked about it a couple of times, for 107, December 12th of 2005. I sell it, no, 2003. I sell it December 27th, 2006. So 3 years later, roughly. It goes from 107 to 264. The rent never changed. Mortgage rates went down a little bit, right? I think I got in with like a 7 and an 8, and I think they were in the 5s when the next person bought it. So there's a lot of stuff about the 06 crash that people blame Wall Street, right? Because they were doing CDOs and collateralized debt and, all of this, which is true. I'm not arguing that fact. But I look at that craziness, and now I look at what the Fed is doing with owner occupants, specifically in single family homes, going, what's different? Right? They're early, right? I'm seeing a movie, and right now I'm 10 minutes into a movie I've already been through before, going, shit, I know how this ends. And again, I have numbers from today, right? There was a house that was $199 that I would have paid $170 for, that someone paid $220 for, because they were an owner occupant with 3.5% down and they can get in. So if this movie continues, that $220 house will be $290 in a couple of years, and the interest rate will be 2% or 2.25%. But unaffordable is unaffordable, right? And when you suddenly lose your job, or we go through the next health scare or the next recession in 2026, what happens, right? Does the individual single family home market deteriorate? Because again, what happened last time is we took 4 or 5% of renters that should have never left, and we made them homeowners. Yeah. That's what happened. You can argue about whether it was good or bad, but that happened. Then they lost, and they went back to being renters. Right now, we're coming out with increasing loan programs because the Fed is buying hand over fist, and there's less and less qualified borrowers in a world of 15% unemployment and credit scores and all these other things. And they're like, I could just see them going, shit, give anybody a loan that can sign their name.
Well, to illustrate this point just a bit, I don't know your answer, but I'm pretty sure I know your answer. If you're going to sell one of your investment properties to an owner occupant,
yep,
what loan program are they going to use, and what percentage down are they going to put down?
I would tell you 99 out of 100 would be an FHA loan with 3.5%.
Okay, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's just an illustration of the point. Conventional financing, you need at least 20% down to avoid PMI.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about 3.5% down on a $150,000 house.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of wiggle room there.
Yeah.
For that new homeowner. And so, yeah, I agree with you. Let me ask you this. The house that you bought in 03 for 107.
Yep.
And then it was worth 260, you said?
264 is what I sold it at.
Okay. 3 years later. And then guessing, if you don't know the number, guessing at the depths of 08, 09, 10.
Oh, I know exactly. I know the whole history. It retrades after being foreclosed at 75.
Okay.
And today it's worth 180.
Okay, so that's very interesting. That's
Yeah.
a very interesting path to follow, because what I was going to say is, um, there's a lesson there to be learned. Well, let me ask you this. Let's say you decided not to sell
Hmm.
the property,
Hmm.
and you held it this entire time. It's
Hmm.
2020 now.
Yeah.
Now you have a property that hasn't appreciated in value in 14 years.
No, it's lost value. It's eighty
Lost.
thousand dollars. Yeah.
Well, it's appreciated over since 2006.
Right.
Right? So it's appreciated in 14 years, but not in 11 years.
Hmm.
Um, what would, presumably though, rent continues to increase
Rent
on
went,
that property.
yeah, rent is now 1,500 from 11, but it only went to 1,500 the last 2 years. It was 1,100 for 12 years.
But with conventional investment financing,
Hmm.
that house would have cash flowed every year in your ownership.
Except, yes, if I had stayed with the purchase, yes, a couple $100. But I did, again, it's the first house. It's in my book. I did a cash out refi and turned it into an alligator. So I was upside down a couple $100 a month because I didn't know any better.
Yeah, yeah. I guess what I thought might be a good illustration is just, um, if you have a cash flowing property,
Hmm.
you can afford to withstand a temporary reduction in value of the property.
No
Uh,
question.
it wouldn't have been your best investment if, let's say you didn't sell it or
Yeah.
refinance or sell it in '06, and
Yeah.
you held it all this time. It certainly wouldn't have been your best investment,
No, no.
but you wouldn't have gotten hurt on it either.
True.
And I think there's an important lesson there about long-term mindset, because that's you don't have to, with a cash flowing asset, you don't have to give the keys back, even if you
True.
end up underwater on your equity. The
True.
cash flow is the most critical component that allows you to keep the asset.
Yep.
And over time, with inflation, with an economy that's improving, the property value will come back to something reasonable.
Yeah, I'm convinced after 30 years it'll be worth 260 again.
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly that was a bubble.
Yeah, no question. Well, that's what, again, I go back to that experience and I talked about it earlier. That's why I follow the herd, because I'm trying to see where all the lemmings are going. Because again, I don't know what true value was, but it obviously wasn't 260, right? True value might have been 180. And it was just the mania of all the flipping shows, and real estate's the path to wealth, and real estate only goes up. I mean, all this stuff from '06, right? So that last 80K was fake. But still, if you can follow the herd and see where it goes past lunacy, and then you happen to have the assets, because again, I can tell you right now, let's just give you another example. I own a house today on Arthur that I bought in 2010 for 41 grand. It is what I call a turnkey rental, which means I've spent at least $30,000 on it, changing everything in the last 2 years. So it's dialed in. It's worth like 220 today, and it rents for 1,500. Right. And I own no debt on it. Right. So it's cash flow. I can hold it forever. But I promise you, if that house goes to 400, I'll sell it in a heartbeat. And with people overbuying stuff, I know I'm early, but I've been in this movie before that's a 2-hour movie and I'm 10 minutes in going, oh my God, they just dropped debt to income ratio. Oh my God, the lending's getting crazy. Oh my God, the Fed's buying all the mortgage-backed securities. Oh my God, we got 15% unemployment and demand is so high. I mean, like, does that 220 house go to 250? Probably. Does the 220 house go to 280? Probably not, but it could. And shoot, does 220 go to 400? I don't know. Maybe in a couple of years, if I don't know, if homeownership goes up again. I've been in this movie cycle before, and it didn't end well for lots of people. So that's why I want to talk about it.
So do you have a formula for determining what rent to value ratio needs to be before you sell?
Oh, it's actually not a rent ratio. So there's something that I don't know if you know, guys. It used to be a California investor named Bruce Norris from the Norris.
I'm familiar with him. Yeah,
from the Norris Group. So he talks about something called the Affordability Index, and that's
Mhm.
my indicator. It's the thing I'd credit in the book. So basically, if for my metro, Fresno, California, if the affordability index gets below 18%, which means 1 in 5 people can afford the average house, which is where I play. I'm not in the jumbo market. I will look to sell my trouble properties. And if it gets under 15, I will sell everything. And today it's at 42. And by comparison, in 2006, when we sold last time, it was 11.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Wow.
if affordability, and again, it doesn't have to go, there's two things that make affordability index change. One is interest rate, and the other is the price of the house, right? So interest rates are going to be low for the next several years without question. That's why I'm back to that house on Arthur. It's worth 220 today. If we get into another lunacy cycle where, because there's not enough affordable housing and everybody wants some and everybody's getting out of Class A apartments, and that 220 goes to 400, wherever that works out. I mean, I could envision in the next 2.5 years, if the affordability index falls, I could sell all my houses and just be done. I could. And that scares me because I know how that ends on the other side for the people who bought unaffordable housing when inflation comes back and then jobs and all that. So it's frightening a little.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So again, that's all that stuff is playing in my head with cash. And again, when I look at the next 6 months, again, July 20 to January 1st, 2021, there is so much uncertainty. And oh, by the way, price discovery, right?
Yeah.
I think single family homes are going to go up. And now up by how much? 5, 10, 20%? I don't know. But more importantly for me, multifamily, right? I see multifamily, again, rents are going down, right? San Francisco down 9%, Mountain View down 16%. Economic vacancies going up from 2% to 7, 8, 9%. Cap rates are going to go from what, 3.7 to 4.5, 5. I mean, all of these things mean value of multifamily is going to go down. And we are in that window of price discovery. So I'm just going to pull back on, I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would disagree with you that multifamily cap rates are going to increase, and that, but I think it's highly dependent on the market and
Sure.
and even the asset, ABC asset. I think there's a lot of different factors. Like to give you an example, I can't believe it, but we are we're increasing rents on at least one of our multifamily properties.
Nice.
So that, that's today. That's
Mm-hmm.
not what's going to happen in 6 months or 12 months. But I think there's a lot of people that look at multifamily as a safe haven, mostly because of if there are, we know there's a gap between the households being formed each year,
no question,
and the number of housing units available, and that gap is only widening. So demand just from pure household formation is definitely increasing. But then if you add on top of that some portion of homeowners that as a result of losing their jobs are going to default on their mortgages, they're going to add to the renter pool. Mm-hmm. But your point is, I think your point is well taken. I just wouldn't be, I have to highlight that some people would disagree with that.
That's
at least
okay.
the multifamily component.
No, I mean, I share this as one guy with one very myopic view. I freely admit that. And I'm happy to be wrong, right? I'm acting on imperfect data.
No, but you're also talking, you're talking more specifically about your market.
Correct.
Which is the right way to think about it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's, but still, even in multifamily, even in Class A in states that are raising rents, I think this little window, there's just no price discovery. Transaction volumes have crawled.
That's totally true. And which is exactly what we're seeing, and much lower volume. The one asset class that is getting a little bit of a flight to quality is stabilized credit tenants with triple net leases.
Triple net, yeah.
Because, those are, in some cases, they're effectively a high paying bond.
Yeah, exactly. They're a bond. Exactly.
And so, that's, for a lot of people, that's an appealing place to be, particularly if you're on the back end of a 1031 exchange and you have money that needs to go put to work, these triple net assets are in some cases being bid up, and especially, with COVID, some trends that were already happening, which we've talked about, many of them in previous weeks, are just accelerating.
Yeah.
And so certain asset classes are becoming actually even more appealing, like industrial distribution facilities,
Yeah. Warehousing.
cold storage, like essentially refrigeration,
Yeah.
storage for food and pharmaceutical products. There's some interesting opportunities out there, but everyone there is not there hasn't been an instance where there's been this kind of Fed intervention.
Yeah.
And so I think that's getting back to your original kind of question. This is why you have two very intelligent investors that have opposing views. And I think the things are going to be that way for a while. I think you're probably right, until at least after the election, because that is quite a bit of uncertainty that each person is weighing the probability of a particular outcome in the White House a certain way, and we won't know until November.
Right. Yeah. And again, just with this level of uncertainty, obviously I'll still do deals, right? You and I talked last week. There was a deal that came across that was it was a simple base hit or double. I'll still do those, but I'm certainly not going to reach, if there's something that's kind of even a question mark, I'll pass or delay. Like there's a house we're going to close on probably this week on Friday that I delayed for 2 months on purpose, right? Not knowing what was going on, right? We didn't change the price point or anything. I'm just like, hey, timeout, right? We got to know. Now it's very clear again, in my market, the low end is on fire. Yeah. So I can buy this roughly for 100, spend $5 to $8 grand, literally cleaning up paint and carpet, put it back on the market and sell for 170-ish, maybe 165. I mean, I'll do that deal today, but I wasn't sure 2 months ago, right? I didn't know. So that's something we're going to close. So I'll do the easy things today, but if it's even a question, I'll either delay or just won't do the deal and sit on cash.
Let me ask you one more question that's related to this. And this is more through the lens of a sponsor.
Okay.
You are a sponsor, right? When you employ your 6 and 20 program, you're sponsoring the deal. It's not either any of or all of your cash.
Correct.
And instead you could say, I'm going to buy this house with my own cash.
I could. No
investor is going to be involved. So maybe it'd be helpful, or maybe just interesting to think through, how do you think about, as a sponsor, how much, if any, of your own cash to put into a particular deal versus taking cash from your investors and putting into the deal? And I'll just lead you a little bit with a little bit more framing.
Sure.
In this example, let's say your return could be, let's say you could have a 50% return on this deal after all of your costs are accounted for.
Yep.
So if you put your own money into the deal, you could make a 50% return on that money.
Yep.
If you chose to not put your own money into the deal, but you took money from investors, you're going to make less than in a total sum, gross amount, you're going to make less money at the end of the deal, but the return on your investment is infinite because you didn't put any of your own money into it. Right. So with the context of, I have cash sitting there, how do I go deploy it? But I also have, it makes more sense from a return perspective to deploy my investment funds. I already have the machine running. I have investors that are interested. Curious how you think through those two different options.
Yeah. So I'm happy you asked this question. Nobody's asked it that well before. So first and foremost, when I'm a sponsor or I go to someone for my 6 and 20 program, I only ever come for the purchase price. I always fund the repairs out of my pocket, right? Because that provides ultimate security and ultimate, my dollars get hit first. So that's something I've done and made a part of the 6 and 20 program. So I never cover any of the purchase price, only the repairs. Now, for when do I take private money? When do I use my own money? Because as we talked about earlier, I have a pile of cash. That is timeline. If I expect to hold the asset 3 months or less, I'll just use my own capital. I won't do the refi. I won't have those additional closing costs, and I'll just churn my money that way. If I expect it to be anywhere more than 3 months, I will go and get private investors within the first 2 weeks of closing and replace my money. So it's really a time frame for me. But yeah, I mean, just this deal alone, right? Let's say I bought it for 100. I needs 10 for easy math, and I sell it for 160. And let's just assume no closing costs or transaction costs, so the math is easy. I do it by myself. I end up putting in 110, and I walk away with 50. So what is that? 45% return, roughly. But that's 45% return over 90 days. 45 times 4 is 180% return. But
Right.
if I got private money, right, then I only put up 10 grand. I then make 50. I got to give 10 up to the investor. I make 40. That's a 400% return times 4 is a 1600% return, right? So for me, it's all about time, right? If I'm going to turn and burn in 90 days, just use my own cash. Don't bother anybody else. 3 months or longer, go get a private investor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think if you were doing more volume and your own cash became a constraint,
Mm-hmm.
of course, it's easy to
Oh yeah, I could flip any of those. Yeah.
pivot into taking more money from investors. If you hit a lull where you just deal volume is low and your cash should be used, you don't feel like it's prudent to give up the upside to an investor, then you do the deal with your own cash.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I play with all the time, right? We're lucky enough right now where we could do 3 to 4 without investors, but I've had many times over the last 2 years where we have 8 to 10 deals going at any one time, right? So it's the 6 and 20 program just makes me feel good. It's a great when you annualize the returns for my investors. It's awesome. My money's at risk first, which makes me feel great. And it allows me just to keep going forward, right? Take every deal down. I can take every deal down I find, which is a very nice place to be. So it's been good.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So thank you for doing this with me, man. You really helped me out. You've made me feel better about sitting on my cash, because I get some people chirping in my ear going, "Oh my God, you should be making 40% on your money. What are you doing with 1%? Blah, 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 blah." And the other side of my head's going, "Dude, do you remember the last time this happened? Be careful." So it's nice to talk with someone.
Well, I think the one thing that I would just end on for you in particular, with your experience and the volume, one deal is not going to kill you.
Yeah.
It's not. It's going to be painful. If you did a deal and you somehow World War III happens and you lose it all, it's going to be painful, but it's not going to hurt you long term. It's going to be a learning, and it's going to be a lesson, and it would probably be a lesson that would make you even more conservative going forward. So,
probably. That's why I'm not in the stocks.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So thank you. That's. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No. That's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time, man. This is always fun. You have a wonderful day.
All right, Michael, you too. Take care.
Yep.